XRP holders, we got a brand new interview by the boss, Brad Garlinghouse. I'll play it, I'll shut up and enjoy. It's about 8 minutes long. Price of XRP at $2+. It comes after this. He's replying, to Liz from Fox Business. So I'll do it. Let's enjoy. It's basically asking everything that's going on right now with Trump, with the tariffs, with Ripple, with the SEC. You don't want to miss it, guys. Smash the like button. Let me know in the comments down below how bullish you are. Let's enjoy.
Ripple CEO Brad Garlinghouse. Ripple's XRP is the native token of the decentralized blockchain XRP ledger. Litigious. As recently as our conversation with Hester Peirce of the SEC, one of the commissioners, she said that the lawsuit against Ripple was still hovering. Where is it now? Because last night we started to hear that it may be disappearing.
So we have reached agreement with staff, and usually what happens is you reach agreement with staff makes recommendation to the commission, and then the commission votes. So anytime we make announcements about that, we are clear that we've reached agreement with staff. The commission hasn't yet voted, but what we've agreed is to dismiss and move on. We're actually getting the SEC we had put in escrow a potential fine of $125 million. We're actually taking most of that back, including the interest that had been earned along the way. And I think it's just evidence that the Gensler SEC was on the wrong side of the law. And thanks to the new leadership at the SEC and in the White House, I think we're seeing a much more constructive, much more pro-innovation. We want these industries to grow at home.
When you say most of the $125 million you had parked in that little fund in case of the worst case scenario, what's left? Can you give us some?
The SEC is going to end up with a $50 million. The U.S. government's going to get $50 million. We even talked about making that available in XRP. But look, at the end of the day, this is a major step forward. I think if you kind of zoom out and look at this, the Trump administration is absolutely living up to their promises. Guy David Sachs leading the effort at the White House, Scott Bessent, and certainly now Paul Atkins getting confirmed, I think, yesterday.
Yes.
These are people who are focused on how do we make sure this is an industry that can thrive at home with sensible regulation, common sense. And that's not what we had for the last 4 years.
What would you hope to see as common sense regulation? Have you talked to David Sachs, and what have you said? Hey, David, this at least needs to be front and center.
The two things that have the most momentum in Capitol Hill are around a stablecoin legislation and then something we generally call a market structure bill. Stablecoin legislation, because we haven't yet had clarity about at what point are banks involved, not involved, what kind of licensing is appropriate. Ripple recently launched our stablecoin under a New York trust license through the New York Department of Financial Services, which we think is kind of the gold standard for how to be regulated in this market. But having federal legislation that is providing clarity for the big players like USDC, Circle, as well as Tether is super important. I think we're going to see that sooner rather than later.
President Trump has made big strides that are very pro-crypto. It's got to be great for somebody like you. However, the price of, let's just say, Bitcoin, which reached a high after the election of something like $107,000, is nowhere near that now. I think we're around 86,000 and change, but it's been a market drop. When do you foresee this moving back up? Because we've seen all kinds of wild projections of something like $250,000 per Bitcoin by the end of this year to people who say this thing's going down.
Yeah. When I think about that, your last guest, Larry Fink, talked about just taking the long-term view.
Right.
And I almost don't think about it in that kind of short-term time frame. I think about what are the macro trends playing out for the crypto industry, for the XRP ecosystem. XRP has been the best performing major crypto in the last 90 days. We think about it as what does that look like over the next 3 years? I'm very optimistic. I mean, Ripple just announced our largest acquisition, actually one of the largest acquisitions in the entire crypto industry to date. We announced it earlier this week on Tuesday in the middle of tariff palooza. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with the tariffs, but we're betting on where the world's going to be in 3 years, not what's going to happen in the next 6 months.
Would you have made that acquisition a year ago?
No, hard no. Look, the SEC in the United States and even other parts of the Biden administration, it was a coordinated attack across many different agencies. Mm-hmm. We're finding that more and more out now. You already highlighted in your introduction, the IRS had hostile rules about crypto that really didn't make any sense. Banks weren't even allowed to reasonably custody crypto without having an equal offset to their balance sheet, which really makes no sense for a bank than to even partake in this industry. It's a real industry. People want, I mean, that administration wasn't listening to consumers. They weren't listening to the voter and what the voter wanted. We're now seeing a significant change across the board. And an acquisition like that would have made no sense a year ago, and it makes a lot of sense now.
It is truly amazing. I am looking at you and I am remembering, was it 2 or 3 years ago? How long has this lawsuit been slapped on you guys?
December 22nd, 2020.
Okay,
so 4.5
years. We've been talking, and I thought to myself, what's going to happen here? And you are on sort of the edge, the cusp of this just finally disappearing.
For sure. And like, it's good for Ripple, it's good for XRP, but it's also good for the whole industry. We want these industries not to be pushed offshore. And what was happening in the last 4 years is almost the opposite. You know, we think it's safer to push them to offshore entities. How
many employees do you have? Let's let people understand how many people you employ.
With our acquisition, we employ about 1,100 people now.
That's incredible.
And these are high-paying jobs. And for a period of time, as you and I have talked about before, for really the 4 years of the Biden administration, we did more hiring outside the United States than here at home. As a U.S. citizen, I grew up in Kansas. I'd like to hire people here. We have some of the best talent in the world here. But it made no sense to invest in a market where we couldn't sign customers. We couldn't actually see banks benefit from a better, simpler cross-border settlement for payments. You know, these are technologies that really can help and revolutionize businesses, consumer experiences, but we have to be able to deliver them to these audiences.
Yeah, I mean, it was more than 10 years ago, I think, we had the Winklevoss brothers getting rejected for their push to have an ETF that allowed people to invest in Bitcoin, and it was a flat-out mic drop no. And now we have so many of those, and this week, an XRP ETF launched, correct?
It hasn't yet traded live in the United States, but it's been, we've had, I think, 11 different applications to go live with an ETF trading here in the United States. We do have it trading outside the United States. This is long overdue, and it's a step towards a more institutionalized, safer way for people to participate in these markets. Our acquisition this week, Hidden Road, we paid $1.25 billion for what's called a prime broker. And this allows even larger institutions like BlackRock, like the biggest Wall Street financial institutions, to come into this market in a way they understand, with a safer prime broker to help clear transactions and a bigger balance sheet to do that. It's good for the whole industry.
So your last thought when it comes to the trade war, because people had been saying,
before I play the last thought from Brad Garlinghouse about tariffs, guys, this is so huge, bro. I'm like, we're going to be so big. All my positions, because we have this conversation every single day, guys, but you're not going to regret having more XRP. And if you guys want to come in and jump in and buy, if you haven't done it already, click the link down below, guys. Sign up to BTCC and 10% bonus, 500x leverage positions on, you know, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and XRP, which is one of the biggest ones that we have, guys. The positions that we have right here down, we're bullish, we're green. We're making some pretty nice profits here on BTC. So I'm not only telling you, but I'm doing it, right? So if you're interested, sign up, deposit. You have my link, guys, because I want to go ahead and take a look at this. But first, final thoughts. This is so good, man. I'm bullish.
Saying for a while that Bitcoin and crypto were a hedge against all kinds of concern about a falling dollar. I mean, even Larry Fink said on this network, on this show about a year ago, that it was a hedge against cratering currencies of whoever's country. That hasn't quite come into play. The dollar has been falling really precipitously over the past 5-6 days. In fact, it was continuing, at least as of this morning. It hit a 3-year low against the euro and a 10-year low against the Swiss franc. And crypto, at least today, is moving higher, but it moves all over the place. What drives the price of crypto?
I wish I had a clean answer to that question. Like any market, a lot of factors drive that. I mean, there was a period of time as some of the tariff dynamics were playing out where crypto was clearly outperforming the equity markets. But some people expected it to perform more like gold, where you're seeing all-time highs. I think people are still figuring out how that'll play out. I think the long-term value here is going to be very clear. It is a hedge against inflation. It is a dynamic where the more utility we drive in the crypto markets, the more we're going to see value accrete to that market.
I don't know if you do this, but I'm going to ask you anyway and push you. What is your price target for Bitcoin? Because Cardano blockchain founder predicted, as I said earlier, 250,000 by year end.
I will predict Bitcoin. I wouldn't predict XRP. It's too close to home. But I think 200,000 is not unreasonable. I think before I've kind of said, 175 around there. I think people underestimate how the largest economy in the world, the United States, went from headwinds, hostility, to tailwinds. And I think people are still not fully quantifying how significant that is to have the largest economy in the world, the largest asset managers in the world go from relatively frozen out or hostile to now a friendly market that has sensible regulation, that is thinking about pro-innovation here at home.
Brad, it's been a long road for you guys over at XRP Ripple, and we'll watch it all. And you've been here from the start trying to tell the story, and now you've got people listening in Washington.
Thank you, Liz. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to see you.
That was amazing. Great to be back with Liz Clement today to have a chat about Ripple's historic acquisition of our prime broker Hayden Road and what it means for the broader crypto market and as the United States takes a much needed pro-innovation approach with new leadership. We're moving past the SEC's war on crypto and entering the next phase of the market through institutional flows, integrating with decentralized finance. Guys, that's what I'm talking about, man. Like, don't care about it's down, it's up, it's down. I'm going to sell whatever, do whatever you want, but I'm adding all those dips. Understand that the best is yet to come. And that's what we don't stop talking common sense about crypto in the United States. There's so much that is coming right now. We have the White House, the Senate, the agencies, the institutions, Ripple, retail, whales. What else do you want? Next is the moon. And you notice at the end, he's not going to make a XRP price prediction because he's too close to home. But when you see 200,000 plus Bitcoin, where do you think the price of XRP is going to be, guys? Through the skies. So you don't want to miss it, fam. I'll see you here on BTCC. Sign up if you haven't already. Links down below. Do it fast before it's too late. Thanks for watching, guys. You've been updated. This is so good. Peace.